Welcome to Blue Talks.
I absolutely love teenagers. I love their piss and vinegar attitude. I love their raging hormones. I love their defiance. I love everything about them, including, I bet you'll recognize this one, that wonderful eye roll that they give you. And they look right at you and as if to say, you haven't the foggiest idea what you're talking about. Well, those things that those kids are going through. But let me go to where you are at the moment. Parenting is like a roller coaster, blindfolded. You're going ups and downs and twists and turns, moments of sheer exhilaration and moments of absolute terror. But what you don't know is a little bit of what I'm going to share today with you. Bullying is rampant. Mental health concerns are through the roof. Social isolation is on the increase. And the one that's the most heartbreaking is suicide is the second cause of death of teenagers in North America. That's here in Canada and the United States. According to the World Health Organization, it's of epidemic proportion around the world. We need to be responsible for doing something about it. This is on our watch. Now, when I say that, I've had the experience of working with so many kids who have, whether I've coached them or whether they've been in my classrooms or in some cases when they've been in the office, which is not always the most pleasant, but I try to do the best to help them feel recognized and heard and understood. And when they've shared with me things like, they don't feel valued. They don't feel like anybody listens. They don't feel like anybody really even cares about them. And at home, all they do is yell and scream, or they're yelled at. And up go the hoodies, in go the earbuds, out comes the cell phone. Probably some of you can recognize that. And then off they go into their virtual perfect world, where you and I know doesn't really exist. And then I've had parents who have come to see me in my office and they've been crying because they don't know how to connect with their kids. They don't know what to say. They don't know what's going on with their children because they haven't been given the tools or they haven't had the tools or the strategies to be able to have those connections. And what I notice from that is that there's this enormous disconnect. And I want to be part of that bridge to be able to bridge the gap of where they are and where we need to have them be. Because times are critical. Kids as young as 5 and 6 are taking their lives because they don't see anything else. They're choosing a permanent solution for something that in most cases you and I know would be a temporary kind of problem. So we need to be stopping and listening. And that's really the key here, because I have 5 strategies of dedicated listening that I help share with parents to be able to have parents really understand what's going on underneath that behavior. Because the dysfunction and the things that they do and the like I mentioned before about their, raging hormones and everything else, kids don't know how to deal with that. And they're looking for you to be the person that helps them out with it. But they're going to push you away and they're going to pull you forward and they're going to do all kinds of things in order to get your attention. But we've become so busy with looking at our own cell phones and being so engaged with busy, busy, busy. Well, busy is always going to be there. We are never going to win that battle. But we need to understand that our children might not be there. And that's the place where we need to take stock and we need to look at what can we do to make a difference? What can we do in order to engage our children. I was at a restaurant just the other day, and I was sitting with my partner, and we were having conversation, and I looked at this family who was sitting at a couple of tables from me, or from us. And there were about 5 or 6 of them at the table, and everybody was looking down at their crotch. Now, I know they weren't really. But, 1 or 2 of them would bring their phone up. And the first thing I thought of was, this is an expensive adventure, because we all know how much it costs to eat in a restaurant these days. And none of them were having conversation with each other. And that was heartbreaking for me. And I thought about going over to see them, and I thought, okay, Elizabeth, keep your, you can't teach everybody everything. They need to have the opportunity to do something different. But a friend of mine just recently was saying, in our home, we have a rule where once dinner or whatever meal we're having, or whether we go out to a restaurant or so on, the cell phones go on the table in a basket, or they're put away in purses or pockets or whatever. And this is an opportunity for us to have conversation, because we don't take the time anymore to have them. We think that we're so busy, but we also don't know how to engage in those conversations. It's important for us to be able to ask questions that are important, that are serious, of serious matters. I saw an advertisement just the other day that, suicide in males is also increased. In this particular commercial that I saw, because I happen to watch the television from time to time, and this particular commercial was talking about the whole idea of sextortion. And we've talked about sex trafficking, and we're talking about the possibility of suicide. And, the unfortunate thing that's happened is I've had some parents come and see me to tell me that they've lost their child to suicide. And then they say, I had no idea. I didn't know it was possible. And I know for you in the audience, you're likely saying, well, that couldn't possibly happen to me. Except they thought that too. And so in moving forward, we need to be able to have those courageous conversations. We need to be able to step out of our comfort zone and really be vulnerable with each other. Parents don't have to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect in our lives these days. This is about saying, you know what? I haven't seen you in a while. Or I've noticed that you're not looking the same. Or, tell me a little bit about why you threw your bag on the floor when you walked in and you didn't say hello. Rather than saying, what the heck is going on here? Why'd you throw your bag? We need to change the way we interact so that we invite each other into that conversation, because that's the only way that we're going to have connection. When I first started teaching, I did an activity with a group of grade 7s, and we did what we called group dynamics, because at that point in time, the parents were a little bit feeling uncomfortable about the whole idea that we would talk about bullying. So I changed the topic to group dynamics. And we had a full day activity, and we had guest speakers, and of course we fed them pizza at lunchtime, because that's their favorite thing to do, is to eat. And at the end of that, I had asked the students just before the workshop started where they felt they were. And I put 0 to 10 on a wall in the gym. And I said, go stand where you think you are in terms of how you feel at school. Do you feel connected? Are there good things going on? And so on. And I was saddened to see that the majority of this particular group was standing around 3 out of 10. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm the administrator in this building. I better be doing something about this. So we got together and we put this workshop together. We had conversation, because I was an assistant principal at the time. We had conversation with the principal and the teachers. And so they talked up in their classes, and they related it to subject areas that they were teaching, so that the kids would get a real interaction about, okay, how can I be friends with someone that I don't know, or I don't like, or I don't think I like them? How is it that I can help somebody else? How is it that I can bring joy and love and understanding to people? And so we did that particular workshop, and then we worked through that in that following year where the teachers continued to bring that up. We had celebrations, we did all kinds of things in order to re-engage with those kids. Now, it was a bonus at the end because I put up that 0 to 10 on the wall again, and I said to them, okay, now where do you think the culture is in this school? And how have you engaged and what changes have been made? And as it turned out, and it was a blessing for me just to see it, because you could see their body language different. You could see the way that they were presenting themselves, that they had more self-confidence, that they had more ability to be able to say, yeah, I can stand on my own 2 feet. I've been given the opportunity to be loved and celebrated. And yeah, difficult times at school and stuff goes on and difficult things at home, but I still have that ability to be able to keep my chin up and do good things. The majority of kids that time when we did that measurement were at 7 and 8, which was a real joyous thing to behold for that group. But taking that and then looking at what I wanted to do, you see, I wanted to be the person that was going to have the absolute solution for bullying. I wanted to be the one that was going to write that book. I wanted to be the one that was going to, be rich and famous, but at the same time help people. And through my journey in education along that way, because I was born a few minutes ago, so that was quite a while back. But as I grew through my own journey and looked at my own self and trials and tribulations that I had benefited, not at that moment in time, but certainly benefited by the idea that I could appreciate what trials and tribulations those kids were going through, I recognize really that it's about connection. It's about relationship. It's about conversation. And it's really, truly about the love that we have for each other. Because we can't do anything without those things. We don't live in a place of isolation. We live in a place of connection, of relationship. And that's why I choose to continue to talk about it. Because I didn't come from a very good place in my home life. And I thought at that point in time, like I said, I was born a few minutes ago, it was a time of secrecy. It was a time where you couldn't share things, and I didn't have anybody to share it with anyway, because I happened to be an only child. And so I couldn't tell people at school, I couldn't talk to anybody, I didn't know what to do. And there were some pretty brutal things that were going on there. And from taking that experience and moving through to where I am now, I recognize too that it's not just about our kids, but it's about how we show up in the world. So part of my focus now is to be able to take these messages and take them to places of business and industry to work through the toxic environments that exist there. Because some of these children never learned the strategies to be successful, didn't learn the strategies to know how to relate to each other, and so on. And those people are now adults in business and industry. And what ends up happening there is we have the similar things. So we have bullying is rampant. We have mental health concerns. I learned a couple of new words recently. One of them is presentism. I didn't know what that was. It means that you're just showing up in your place of business and that's it, like you're there. And I thought, there's got to be something that we can do to make a difference, because what we know now and what I've done in research and so on is to find out that if people don't feel valued at work, if they don't feel like they're heard, if they don't feel like they have a place to be able to speak and have conversation with people, then what they do is that frustration ends up going home. And one of two things typically happen. One of them is if they have a family who loves them and wants to celebrate them and do good things, then that's going to keep that person engaged to go back to work, to make money, to bring it home, to continue to have that joyous experience. But here's the other side. If that person doesn't feel valued, if they don't feel heard, if they don't feel acknowledged, if they don't feel that their opinions are valid or that they're worthy of anything, then the other thing that's possible when they go home is frustration and anger and disappointment and the possibility of drug abuse or alcoholism or domestic violence. And that's what I lived through as a kid. And so I can appreciate now the space of being able to understand and help teams and help workplaces and help the people who actually help the production, who help the furthering of employment, who help profitability, who help with efficiency and effectiveness in their business. If that's thriving, then what can we now have in a workplace? We can have a place of possibility. We can have a place of positivity, and we can have more effective functioning units and teams in workplaces that then transpires back into where their home life is in order to create a new and exciting place there. Now, I get that it's not an overnight solution, and I certainly have lots of work to do. And many of you in this audience also do similar work like this. So this is a time where we have to be able to move together to create a movement where we start making a difference, where we're not afraid to turn to the person beside us to say hello, to acknowledge somebody, to hold the door open, to stop at a place and buy somebody a coffee. And I get now, coffee is really very expensive, so you might want to break open the piggy bank. But to be able to do those small, what we call probably insignificant things that might make someone else's day, and it might even keep them alive. Because you don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. You don't know the trials and tribulations. And you may be that person who really does transform. The other piece about this, and I'm just in getting close to wrapping up, the other piece that we get to look at here too is how do we show up in our own businesses, as entrepreneurs with this space of sales. Again, it's about relationship, go figure. So if we have relationship with potential clients, and we make them feel valued, and we make them feel heard, and we actually listen to what we imagine are those big objections, then that's a space too where we invite them into conversation, where we get to know them. We step out again out of our own comfort zone and into a place of community, of connection, of relationship. And the bonus is the possibility of having a new client or two. Wouldn't that be fascinating? So in closing this afternoon, I want to invite you into this space of connection and community. And the next time that you see someone or that you're in a group like this where there's someone that you don't know, be the first to either stick out your hand or give them a hug or, stand politely in case they're not used to that kind of, bear hug kind of thing, and be able to welcome them. Invite them into being part of what's going on. Because we're all too isolated. We're all too individual. And we think that, oh my gosh, we think that no one cares or they don't see us. And we need to have people not be invisible anymore. So with connection, collaboration, community, respect and responsibility, and you know what? The biggest part is with love. Thank you very much.